All right, welcome back, everybody. Next topic. This is our grassrootsism panel, by the way. Next topic of the panel, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to speak on Capitol Hill soon. And now Democrats are agitated, saying that proper protocol was not followed. Barack Obama, the president, of course, was not asked in advance. Many of them are talking about boycotting the speech. It's an important speech as Iran moves towards becoming a nuclear power. To me, I'm going to start with Ethan Behrman. To me, it shows the lack of leadership in Washington on both sides. The fact that Democrats are talking about boycotting because protocol wasn't followed is a lack of leadership on a dangerous topic. And the fact that we've now learned, according to an Israeli spokesperson, that Israel did not know that the Democrats were not in on it. They thought everything was on the up and up. That's a lack of leadership on Boehner's end for not fully disclosing what's going on here. Your take on this whole thing?
Well, I agree with everything that you just started with. It's a lack of leadership on both sides in this case. But ultimately, what the entire problem is we have 6 years under this president where he has done terrible things in the interest of the one country in the Middle East that actually understands liberty and freedom and universal human rights. What other country in the Middle East where...
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is important. I want to get this in. You actually traveled to Israel this past summer and were there during the Gaza war. You see it change your perspective on Israel.
Absolutely. So I met Christians, I met Arabs, I met Muslims, I met Palestinian Arabs in Israel or in the West Bank. I was on the hill overlooking Gaza while one of the tunnels was being blown up. I looked at the Qassam rockets. But I met a multicultural, multi-ethnic society where all of the people that we don't hear about here, the Christians, the Druze, the Palestinian Arabs, are actually happy to be under Israeli leadership and rule where they get treated fairly, paid well, they have health benefits, they have retirement benefits, and the rule of law applies.
Gianno, I know you have some strong thoughts on this whole story of Democrats being agitated at Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, you know, President Obama and Netanyahu certainly have a contentious relationship.
That's right.
He doesn't probably like him, and Netanyahu doesn't like Obama. That doesn't mean that President Obama does not support the country of Israel. In fact, he's been a very strong supporter.
Really?
The fact is, yeah, absolutely. The fact is that it was a breach of protocol, and it's an important protocol that Congress doesn't set foreign policy agendas. They shouldn't go beyond what the president is within his purview and invite a foreign leader to speak as though it's a state visit, especially when his motive is probably to get votes for the upcoming election.
Well, I agree. It's a lack of leadership on both ends. I agree that John Boehner should have followed protocol, at least brought the Democrats in the fold, or at least informed the Israelis that they weren't in the fold. But I disagree that Israel feels as if they have a great relationship with America under President Obama. Gianno Caldwell, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. So as a federal lobbyist, I work with members of Congress on a daily basis, and I've spoken with several on this issue on both sides of the aisle. Some legitimately feel that the protocol wasn't followed. Others are more disappointed with the fact that the president hasn't reached out to Israel as they believe he should to extend a hand of friendship to our greatest ally this country has probably ever have known. They believe that he should have come down forceful on ISIS more than he has in the past, come up with some strategy plans, let Israel know that we are here with you as a friend. I kind of disagree with Speaker Boehner breaking protocol. However, I think it might have been necessary to hear from the Israel people to see what their thoughts are so we can come up with a real strategy moving forward.
And before we go to Wendy and get her take, let me ask you, you're speaking to both sides of the aisle there in Washington, Gianno. Is there a sentiment there inside the Beltway? Does Israel feel as if they've been let down by President Obama? Do our lawmakers feel as if that in general, on balance, President Obama has not been as warm and as supportive of Israel as past American presidents?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, and I know you're asking me a direct question. I want to give you a direct answer here. I think that a number of legislators on both sides of the aisle feel as though Israel should be treated much more warmly than they have been. I think the prep reference, which I believe I might have referenced before, where he kind of came down on Christianity a little bit and didn't say anything about ISIS or rebuke them at all, made people feel rather uncomfortable. So I think in this particular situation in the Beltway, folks are more willing to hear from the Prime Minister directly so they can get his views and also directly have a communication link to him rather than going through the president.
Let's go to Wendy Patrick.
You know, that last point I think is excellent, is they want to hear from the man himself, as, you know, rather than have some watered-down version or inaccurate version. The reason this has gotten the press that it has is because of what my co-panelists have all said. We're not talking about a country that, you know, maybe isn't being as heavily watched as Israel. We are talking about really an alliance that we want to maintain, but we also want to make sure we don't step on any toes. And this word boycott, boy, the Democrats don't like that word boycott. Some of them, as they've explained, just won't be there because they have pre-existing plans, the vice president being one of them. Nobody wants to suggest, even for a second, that there are people that are going to boycott this appearance, even though protocol wasn't followed. There's lots of instances where protocol isn't followed. This isn't the first time this has happened, but it's probably the first time it's happened on this grand of scale.
You know, and that takes me to a different story. So you could say, and I agree with Gianno, there's probably a lot of politics at play here when John Boehner did not follow protocol. One could argue, one could be generous and argue and say that John Boehner was going around the president and going to the people. Well, there's an American hip-hop artist who's going around politicians and going to the people, and a hip-hop artist known as Akon is playing an anti-ISIS concert that will benefit those people in the Kurdistan region of Iraq who are fighting ISIS. Let's go to Ethan Behrman. Ethan, I am excited over this. I think it is brilliant, and what excites me, it's the as Andrew Breitbart, my late friend, often said, pop culture is how America communicates to the world. Here we see pop culture saying, you know what, Mr. President, ISIS may be a JV basketball team to you, but people are dying, and you're not doing anything, and I'm going to do something about it. Your take on this?
Yeah, and Kurdistan is the front lines of the war. I mean, they are the people that are actually fighting ISIS on the ground with men and women in their military, in their militias fighting ISIS. I think this is a wonderful thing that's going on. And by the way, I see it as just one of the first steps to a free Kurdistan and actually the establishment of a Kurdish state.
How's this a first step to a free Kurdistan?
Well, because it's bringing the attention. The American people really are ignorant to the fact of what's going on with the Kurds. We've heard about it little bits here and there, but they've been fighting the Turks, they've been fighting other groups in Iraq, and now they are the actual front lines in the fight.
So you believe this is that big of a move that it could be a game changer?
It's potential, because now all of a sudden you bring it to the point of why culture matters,
right, and
why a hip-hop artist matters is there's an entire population, an entire gigantic demographic of people that have never paid attention to the Kurds before, and now they will.
Hip-hop in Iraq, who knew? We'll continue with our Grassrootsism panel with more. Get our panel's reaction to this story after the break. I'm Rick Amato. Stay with me.